They fashion, media, and communication with international magic present. Hyper Bodies, a summit on the
role of bodies in a more than human world.
Legrand Jäger,
on the machine gaze
and the belief systems it creates.
So thanks for having us and for your attention. Guillemette obviously joins us virtually from Berlin. And the way we thought about doing this is to talk to you for about 30 minutes through 3 different kind of projects that we've done since 2018 that we think relate to the theme of hyperbodies. And the visual material that you're going to see, it's a combination of our work, the byproduct of research. So a lot of it is like sort of videos that we're testing with in the technology that we're making, and also found footage, which I think you'll recognize. And we're going to describe these projects through a kind of narrative about sometimes personal stories about how we came to the projects, and also sometimes more political contexts from where the technology kind of emerged.
So we're going to share 3 winding stories, guiding you through the multiple layers of our project. We're going to navigate through the entanglement and friction of the conceptual, technical, and representational thread. We hope that'll give you an insight into our work, and after we welcome questions and comments and dissent. So part 1, Deep Voice, Empty Orchestra. So everything started for Deep Voice, Empty Orchestra with the memory of a room covered with waxy red faux leather, glittering walls, and flighty neon specks of light. Jugs of warm beer lined the table, and in the background, a tiny orchestral cover of Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On. We are in private karaoke room in Taipei City. It's summer 2018. It is 3 or 4 a.m. when we enter the mall, snaking through the expensive lobby to find a lift that would take us to the 14th floor of this building. A long corridor lined with one door after another, 1406, 1407, 1408. The room is filled with an emotional charge. The voices of friends and colleagues unloaded their inner feeling in the shadow of the night. What waits for us is a karaoke, translated empty plus orchestra. An empty sound, an invitation to lend our voice to the rhythm and forget our shyness and amplify our voices.
So karaoke was introduced in Japan by musician Daisuke Inoue in Kobe in Japan in 1971. And he was a business manager of his band, which played backup music in a club for businessmen who wanted to take the stage, to have a small moment at the end of the night where their voices were heard and they lived in the spotlight, as he described it. One night, they weren't able to play, and so instead he recorded a tape, and this became the sort of groundwork of karaoke. And in 1999, Time magazine recognized his role in the newly international craze, describing his influence as follows. Inoue transformed the nights. He helped invent karaoke, creating a tradition that in 30 years has become as universally known as pizza or disco. Sony's Walkman, the video games of Nintendo, Sega, Bandai, and Tamagotchi. Using technology to empower the little guy, suddenly anyone could listen to his own music in a crowded train, fax his handwriting across the globe, or, in regards to karaoke, perform his own rendition of Like a Virgin.
A couple months later, we're in London, sitting on Eva's balcony. We are reading an email from a British civil liberties and privacy campaigning organization called Big Brother Watch. They share with us a Freedom of Information Act about how HMRC has been capturing voices and could have been sharing them to third party without user consent. So you might have had the experience of using the phrase, "my voice is my password." voice ID system. It's a voice ID system built by HMRC, which has collected 5.1 million audio signature, creating biometric ID card by the back door with no choice given to opt out. And so that day on that balcony, we start to think about the line we could draw between this and that room in Taipei that we described earlier, and the vulnerability of the voice, and what was a big transition in Europe at the time, the GDPR. So where are all these voice stored, used, deciphered? We discover initiative across the world, storage, warehouse devoted to the storage of voice print in the UK, in the US, in China, capturing a unique and powerful instrument of human expression. Government has become increasingly invested in collecting voice print to identify the citizen, and tech company quickly realized that they could use our voices as a resource. The voice print is a light and cheap data form which we have much less control over than our face. So voice recognition technology is used to extract and analyze unique voice pattern and rhythm to identify a person using just their voice. It operates by checking over 100 behavioral and physical vocal features, including the size and shape of your voice, how fast you talk, and how you emphasize words. Once our voices are collected as data, not just a print or diagram of high and low frequency is generated, but we argue that it's the essence of ourselves that is captured, information that can locate and identify us. When we speak, when we sing, our voices represent us as a unique acoustic frequency. The voice acts as us, turning us into political beings. The shape, the size of an individual vocal cord, what is used to make your voice print, all this information is unique to each individual. It comes from within our body, powered by our lungs, shaped by our vocal cord, our larynx. This airflow carries the most intimate information about us, a high resolution signature of our body and identity. But in a social cultural sense, we control our voice. We can use it to protest, to seduce, to displace, to lie, to hide, and to manipulate our own emotional state or that of others.
This is an X-ray as someone is singing, so you can see the kind of tongue muscle moving. So the machine gaze proposes how you can feel, and that how you can feel can be calculated. And using a kind of science of emotion recognition and a disproven theory of universality of emotion, the machine gaze, or in this case, the machine ear, is able to hear if you're happy, if you're sad, if you're afraid, if you're angry, or if you're neutral. Artificial intelligence, or the data sets that are run through these algorithms, can be labeled and stored, and that's how these emotions can be deciphered from your voice. The voice print is now considered a trustworthy and reliable piece of evidence by most governments, a risk management tool, a product strategy, asset, or bossware. Throughout history, we've built lie detector tests, alchemical potions, fMRIs, voice stress analyses, and it's all because we have this desire to categorize and quantify emotions, turning them from human interactions into a task for various machine oracles.
So this brings us back to the beginning of this story, when we were in a sacred place for voice, vibration, resonance, and the production and explosion of emotions. So here lies a karaoke conspiracy, the deep voice in the empty orchestra, that in singing with emotion, there would be a backdoor in the voice entertainment industry to the data market.
So part 2, the Internet of Ears, household policy manager. So follow us now to the UN, where Boris Johnson is delivering a riveting speech about at the General Assembly on the future of AI. He's doing it through the myth of Prometheus, a titan who gave humans technology and was punished for eternity. The myth goes that the gods feared a human ability to be all-knowing, powered by their new technology. And in the speech, Boris says, in the future, voice connectivity will be in every room and almost every object. Your mattress will monitor your nightmares. Your fridge will beep for more cheese. Your front door will sweep wide the moment you approach, like some silent butler. But in some great cloud of data that lures over ever more oppressively over the human race, a giant dark thundercloud waiting to burst. And we have no control over how or when the precipitation will take place. The moment of watching this, the then Prime Minister deliver this speech was indeed surreal, because we understood the fact that Boris Johnson and the Leave campaign relied on the use of AI to power a new league of propaganda that feeds on a very strong emotion, which we can identify as fear. So Leave used Cambridge Analytica's technology to harvest public data from people's Facebook profiles and used advanced machine learning to spread personally targeted and emotionally charged misinformation. So the Leave campaign used this profiling information for over 1 million individuals alongside AI to target specific undecided voters and push their campaign over the finish line.
But for us, watching Boris Johnson deliver a speech about AI felt so surreal, because just 2 weeks before, we built the Boris AI, who kindly accepted our invitation to deliver a policy speech covering his plan for the 31st of October at the Victoria and Albert Museum. And somehow Boris Johnson's intervention about limbless chickens had something or everything to do with our AI-generated speculative speech, where our version of Boris would say, feta cheese manufacturers object to the immediate post-war period and the grim truth, and assuring the audience that is guided by a rational thought, by a refreshing wisdom to the face.
So we actually started at the end of that story instead of the beginning. So we'll loop back around to tell you sort of how we got there. We were working in 2018 from a studio in the Design Museum, and we were reading through the scandal of Cambridge Analytica, trying to understand it from a technical point of view. And as part of our residency, we were tasked with investigating the smart home device, things like Amazon, Alexa, and Google Home. And instead of treating these devices as singular objects, we wanted to take them apart and understand them as an algorithm, a data set, a network, and also to understand their hardware as a speaker and a microphone, and that as the interface. We started to look at these elements through the lens of their innovation strategy, so things like pending patents. And this would help us understand the future trajectory that a company had planned for devices like the Echo Dot or Alexa.
So we started investigating the trajectory of one patent in particular, called from 2015, called Sniffing Technologies, that was registered by Amazon, that depicts a software that would allow the device to eavesdrop on conversation and analyze them, feeding them into a database that progressively build a profile of the type of person, or consumer, or citizen you are. So the key specificity of this patent is that it would not only wait for the word Alexa to wake up, but it would start sensing or sniffing its surrounding constantly. It would instead be attentive to other words such as like love, hate, and this word becomes seeds or keyword to build profile and scenario about you and your life. So this assumption are then implemented through recommendation or targeted ads. So we start to see how the nodes are connected to the network, a microphone that listens, a network that is capable of collecting and analyzing data for profiling based on existing data sets, plus your own personal one. A never-ending loop of things that is sniffed out of you, seeded into a statistical model to simulate a version of the future. And then that is served back at you or someone that might be just like you as soft media. And we call that a cyclic system of soft probabilistic loop. But more than anything, we wanted to draw a visceral connection to why people should care, something which could summarize in a feeling. So we worked with a sound engineer to build an algorithm that could pick through a database of domestic recordings, once captured by Alexa, and match it to the notes of the British national anthem. And we're going to play it now.
I'll play it for you maybe after. Okay, but since at the time we were preparing our show at the Design Museum, this is where we're now cycling back in history, it was actually the countdown to Theresa May's Brexit deal, and around December 2018. So we decided to dig deeper into the technology of recurrent neural networks, these neural networks that are to be found in Amazon Alexa, and learn about their formation in order to produce this Brexit policy speech. So we had to create a data set and the priming documents and understand what it would really take to generate this speech. And the experience of collating all of these documents, so transcripts of speeches from each of the sort of key stakeholders in the negotiations, transcribing them, marking them, labeling them, things that are known as cleaning data, for over 5,000 pieces. And we also included social media posts from private citizens and domestic recordings of conversations about Brexit that we felt sort of played a big role in the political campaign. The presentation of the speech then became another visual image to solve. How could we create a scenario where the input and the output, so the microphone and the speaker, this loop in between them, somehow were made apparent through the performance? So we used the atrium of the Design Museum, and we built these two platforms, input-output, vaguely based off of the look of the Echo Dot. And the input, where Guillemette and I stood, we were reading all of those source data that we had collected on one platform, and on the output platform where Theresa May stood, she was like a mouthpiece or the amplifier of the loop. So when we considered how to embody this character of Theresa, we met with a bunch of Theresa queens, and it occurred to us that the way that they prepare for a role, prepare a character or a caricature to embody another character is, very much based on pulling out exaggerated features. And this is one of the ways that AI also works as well, just adopting enough of a characteristic to appear as such without ever really being that thing.
Part 3, ribbon pie, thread spinning, curve fitting. So we'll end by telling you a story about weaving destiny in our latest project, Ribbon Pie. So it's a story that has been told many times as myth or legend to justify the order of things. It's a story of 3 fates, sisters with a special gift. Here the 3 sisters sit in the garden with thread and loom. You have Clotho, the spinner, that spins the thread from a distaff onto a spindle. At the moment of your birth, she creates 1 thread, that of a lifetime. Lachesis, the drawer of lots, measures each thread, checking her sister's handiwork. And finally, Atropos, the sister feared by most, does the unturning. She cuts the thread, signifying when your death will come. Through the final form is sprawling, an assemblage of all the many things that happen in a lifetime. The tapestry is made of just 1 thread. A line which curves up and down, in and out to form the final tapestry.
These days, the fates could be model makers, choosing variables and designing programs which make sense of their data. Clotho would be data collection, Lachesis would be data analysis, and Atropos would be predictions. And in this way, the data imaginary becomes a new kind of fate. The model becomes a new loom. This is the agent. She's one of many decision-making entities within the model. She's testing her autonomy. She's graphing by gathering, analyzing, and calculating meaning. And what was once a thread is now a curve produced by an algorithmic model. When we were developing the themes of this work in 2020, it was the first time that the instrumentalization of forecasting models had been so clear. The pandemic curve and the flattening of the curve brought basic statistics into our collective imaginary. And as these predictive geometries became more commonplace, it created a timely context for us as designers to unpack the logic behind these big forecasting models, and how their visual outputs influence political decision-making and also therefore our understanding of the future. So to translate our research, we operated a visual analogy between the forecasting model's curve and the ones produced by a ribbon dancer. And by so doing, we tried to bring a sometimes complex science of forecast model reading into a kind of hopefully engaging context through staging a gymnastics competition where the gymnast and her ribbon, which we're positioning as the curve, will input into their own future. So here we can bring these two things that are really interesting to us into close proximity, the quantified body and the analytical curve. And also sort of ideas of entertainment, which are interesting to us in our practice.
So the sport of ribbon dancing provides a way to embody the algorithmic model's output, a curve, a funnel, a wave. And in this sport, the element of the single human body and the ribbon drawn curve are the perfect pairing to represent the intricate relationship between bodily and algorithmic measurement. So we became interested in the ribbon gymnastic rule, and especially the scoring system and analog annotation of gymnastic poses. These systems are based on the Lab movement analysis, LMA, which is a method and language for describing, visualizing, interpreting, and documenting human movement. So both the technical and visual language is interestingly interrelated with how a model compare and categorize and select from database to identify the highest score or the highest probable match. So by working through the challenges of capturing and modeling a multidimensional flexible object, such as a textile ribbon, and the hydrodynamic property of its movement in space, we realized how we were facing similar systemic problems and challenges present in the representation of complex systems, such as the one faced by the modeling of climate or financial markets. So together with developer Isaac Clarke, we designed a computational program called Ribbon Pi that is capable of capturing the movement of a ribbon dancer and the curve she's producing with our apparatus. Here we use a gymnastic discipline as a means to produce data to train a predictive model. So the program was able to specialize the data collected to analyze patterns with confidence and thereby make an assumption about the possible choreographic sequence to come. It was 20 seconds in the future.
So here's our agent again in the present moment. And you could predict what happens next. We know how gravity works, that what goes up must come down, but the model doesn't understand gravity or common sense without being told, or having a lot of data to train on. So the model that we used took this data to measure and analyze and present 20 seconds into the future and 20 seconds into the past. So on the left-hand side, the model will begin from the x-axis, which is the present, and show 20 seconds in the past. And in the middle, we're left with a void, where we can measure how reality and the simulation meet. And in this void, things are much harder to measure and determine. It's the space where data can be transformed through rhetoric, where predictions can be self-fulfilling, and where there are nodes from which any number of varying predictions can emerge. So we'll leave you with a short video of the performance that we did at the Victoria and Albert Museum in 2021 called Ribbon Pie Fate Spinning Curve Fitting. And that's Mimi Cesar. She's on Team Britain for rhythmic gymnastics. And that's all.